Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar called Getting Involved with the ACPA Involvement Team. My name is Heather Shea and I will be moderating today's webcast. And I'd like to introduce our president, Kathleen Kerr.
Hi, thank you very much, Heather. My name is Kathleen Kerr. I'm the president of ACPA. I also serve as Executive Director of Residence Life and Housing at the University of Delaware. And I'll talk a little bit about why that's relevant to today's webinar. I want to welcome you all to the webinar, whether you are new to ACPA or you've been a member for a while. We are really very excited that you've joined us on this webinar to either learn more about your involvement in ACPA and how you can be involved in ACPA or expand your current awareness. So on behalf of the governing board, the other elected leaders, and the international office staff, I do say welcome. Today's webinar is really important, and it really represents the heart of who we are as an association, because ACPA is a member-driven association. We have over 7,000 members. Each one has a voice, and we really do strive to include as many of those voices as possible in the functioning of the association. To that end, every member, we hope, has an opportunity to be engaged and be involved. But how each member gets involved and gets engaged, that looks different. It depends on your personal and your professional circumstances. So today's webinar, its intention is really to provide you with some insights into the opportunities that exist on how to make the most of those opportunities to be involved, and to think about some things that you might want to consider before you become involved. We want ACPA to be your association home for your entire career, whether you're an undergraduate student just exploring a career in student affairs or a retired faculty member. There are opportunities for you. It's never too late to be involved, and of course it's never too early. And I think that my involvement story is a really good illustration of this point. So back to me working at the University of Delaware, and I'll tell you a little bit about my involvement story. I had actually been working for a long time in student affairs. What I would call a mid-level professional, associate director in residence life and housing at the University of Delaware. Had 4 kids, was at most attending convention, but was not in any leadership role at all. And a young new professional in my department nominated me to serve on the directorate body of the Commission for Housing and Residential Life. I had finished my doctorate, and I thought, okay, I'll accept that nomination, and I was elected to serve on the directorate body. He thought I had something to offer ACPA, but what I discovered was I had a lot to gain and a lot to learn. After 2 years on the commission as a directorate body member, I ran for commission chair. I won that role. I was appointed to the Presidential Task Force on Sustainability. I was selected as program chair for a couple conventions. I ran for a governing board position, and then I ran for president. So I served 1 year as vice president, and now I'm serving as president. I'll serve a year as past president starting in April. And so that's my involvement story. I was probably late in some people's mind coming to the game, so to speak. But it all started with one simple nomination, and it was an important nomination that's led to a lot of learning for me, and I think improved my skills as a practitioner. So I think wherever you are in your experience, it's important to think about where you might connect with ACPA. So before I pass this back to Heather, I want to talk really briefly about ACPA's mission and our vision. And that's on the screen in front of you. We continue to be recognized as leaders in higher education, providing leadership for trends and with important issues. And we do believe that we have an important ability to adapt and grow and change. We actually will celebrate our 90th year in 2014, and we have an ongoing commitment to anyone who works with students outside of the classroom. So with that, I'll pass it back to Heather, who will introduce the presenters for today.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for being here today and for providing the introduction for today's webcast. Again, my name is Heather Shea. I come to you from Michigan State University, where I work with a living learning community. And my history of involvement in ACPA also somewhat similar through the commission route. I'll talk more about that later. But currently I'm serving as the program chair for the 2014 convention, as well as the director-elect of membership development. Now I'd like to have my co-presenters introduce themselves today as well. Melissa, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Melissa Jones, and I am currently serving as the Associate Director in the Office of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity at Virginia Commonwealth University. And my ACPA experience, not unlike Kathleen, started with a simple nomination. Actually, I think I got stumbled into secretary at the state level, and that's really how I started to get involved, became state president, and moved up through, um, the assembly into some assembly leadership roles with state and international divisions, which you'll find out more about. I've been involved with convention planning as well as the Next Generation conference, and now I'm serving as involvement team chair here for the association. I will pass it on to Diane Reed.
Hi, this is Diane, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Career Center at UNC Wilmington. And my involvement started at the state and international level. So when I became involved with North Carolina's association, they mentioned, hey, you have to go to summer leadership. And that's when I really started meeting everybody that I know in ACPA today, and eventually became part of a convention team, and now serving as new member orientation for the involvement team. And here's Dave.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Fleming. I currently serve as an Assistant Director for Residence Education at Virginia Commonwealth University. I became aware of ACPA back in 2009 when I used their Career Central services to find actually this job. As I became more active in the last couple of years, I now serve on Diane's committee, which helped put together this webinar. And also I'm working with a few colleagues in Virginia to restart VCPA, which is the Virginia's regional or state division of ACPA.
Great. Well, welcome to all of our presenters here today. I know all of us on the call have varied experiences in ACPA and have been involved for a number of years in a number of different capacities. So you'll get to know us a little bit as we take you through this webinar. And also throughout the webinar, you'll see several of our member stories of involvement, which highlight the various avenues through which you can be involved in this association. I'm now going to talk a little bit about an overview of the core values of ACPA, which I think you'll see reflected within several of the involvement opportunities. The mission of ACPA is founded on and implements these following core values. First, education and development of the total student. Second, diversity, multicultural competence, and human dignity. Third, inclusiveness in and access to association-wide involvement and decision-making. That's that grassroots voice that Kathleen talked about. We also value the open exchange of ideas in a context of mutual respect. And then advancement and dissemination of knowledge relevant to college students and their learning, as well as the effectiveness of student affairs and student services professionals within their institutions. We do this through continuous professional development and personal growth of student affairs and student services professionals, which includes the development of effective administrative leadership and management skills. And then also outreach and advocacy on issues of concern to students, student affairs and services professionals, as well as higher and tertiary education community members, including affirmative action and other policy issues. So you'll see several core values that the association cares about. On the next slide, I want to talk just briefly about our governance structure. This is critical to understanding how you can get involved and also how the organization is established and structured. So the mission of the governing board, I'm going to talk primarily about the side on the left, and Melissa's going to talk a little bit about the right. The mission of the governing board is to create and maintain a strategic plan and strategic planning process that implements the association mission and vision through those core values that I just mentioned. The governing board engages in advocacy and deliberate action to promote the association's mission, strategic plan, and core values. And the governing board works as a leadership team focused on the good of the association as a whole. You'll notice this governance structure is kind of a unique way of looking at an organizational chart, and it was one of the most significant changes that has been made to ACPA in the recent past. During President Jeannie Steffes' first term in 2004-2005, a governance task force, which was chaired by Patty Perillo, began a 3-year process of researching, creating, and implementing this new governance structure. The new governing board convened in July of 2007, and the Assembly met at the summer leadership meeting, which moved ACPA into its next phase as an organization. The other side of the membership, or the governance structure that you'll notice, is the ACPA International Office. The International Office, based in Washington, D.C. at 1 DuPont Circle, it houses a team of professionals who support and work alongside members of the governing board as well as members of the Assembly in implementing the ACPA mission and values. You'll see several positions in the International Office echo some of the positions on the governing board, and this overlap provides great support and organization to the broader association. They're extremely accessible and knowledgeable individuals who serve on the staff in the IO. Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about the ACPA Assembly?
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. One of the things that you'll see as Heather spoke about the governance structure is that things run horizontally and not vertically, and that was very intentional when the governance restructure was done, and part of that is really because of the voices of the Assembly. The Assembly is a little bit different from the governing board. As Heather said, the governing board is really responsible for lots of the strategic planning. The Assembly helps to represent the voices of the members in ACPA a little more directly, and so you'll see some words over there on the right side, things like commissions and standing committees and state divisions, and you've heard us mention those. I want to tell you a little bit about what those are. The Assembly itself is made up of entity groups that represent us on pretty basic levels. So the standing committees really represent who we are as professionals. And the commissions represent what we do, our functional areas. State and international divisions really represent where we do them, where we live, and represent us a little bit more locally. And we also have our Director of Equity and Inclusion, and one of the things that Heather had spoken about before is really the core values of ACPA. And so the Assembly provides a way for new concepts and new ideas to emerge from a grassroots level to be brought forth for consideration to the governing board. It makes us a little bit more of a nimble association and really stays true to ACPA's values of valuing each member and each member voice. One of the things that makes ACPA my professional home is that ACPA believes in one voice, one vote, so that members of our general membership really do have a vote and a say in where we're going as a profession. And so I think that's a very powerful thing. And so the Assembly is really the manifestation of that. We will talk a little bit more about standing committees, commissions, and state and international divisions as a way of, a great way of getting involved and really great entry points. To that end, I'll go ahead and start that conversation and start to tell you a little bit about standing committees. Like I mentioned, standing committees are representing who we are. They are identity-based, and they're the place where if you're really interested in acting as an advocate for your social identity, in terms of your ACPA membership or in terms of your professional, that's a great place to start. Some of the things that you'll find that standing committees do is they provide mentoring opportunities for not just new professionals, for seasoned professionals as well, people who just really want to start engaging in their social identity. They promote relevant scholarship with respect to that, often found tackling social justice issues. They produce publications. They sponsor programs, and they sponsor socials and programs during conventions, so you can find them certainly there. But throughout the course of the year, not just at convention, you can find the standing committees being very, very active in setting the tone for the association as well as for our field in general. There are 6 standing committees that you can join and be a part of. There's a standing committee for graduate students and new professionals, standing committee for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender awareness, the standing committee for multicultural affairs, the standing committee for women, the Standing Committee on Disability, and the Standing Committee on Men and Masculinities. And you can see that these 6 standing committees really try to capture who we are as an identity, and you don't have to be part of just one standing committee. So that's one of the great things about ACPA as well, is that if you're identifying in more than one way, you can certainly join more than one standing committee. There's also a new community of practice that we have at ACPA, and that's the mid-level community of practice. It's really speaking to what we've heard from our colleagues in the field is needing a place for mid-levels to really commune together. So this is now the new home for mid-level professionals in higher education. As defined here, mid-level professionals are those who have been in the field for more than 5 years, but aren't a senior student affairs officer. Some folks want to become senior student affairs officers, some folks don't, and that's okay. Mid-level is a pretty broad categorization, so this new community is really a great way to recognize and acknowledge and honor that breadth. That said, I will hand it back to Heather to talk a little bit more about commissions.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. As I mentioned in my introduction, I got my start in ACPA through the commissions. So the commissions are my home, and commissions do represent what we do in our jobs on a daily basis. So these are the job functions or the areas of interest in which ACPA members are employed. They provide opportunities for members to volunteer and take on a variety of different leadership roles. So you might choose to be a member of a commission based on what you do at your job. You work as a student conduct officer or in a career center, but you might also look for a commission that addresses an area of interest like social justice, education, spirituality, faith, religion, or meaning. And you might choose a membership based on the type of institution that you work at. For example, there's a commission for student development in the two-year college. So as I mentioned, there are 20 different commissions that you might take an interest in, and there's really no limit to the number of groups you can select. So if you're interested down the road in having a job in another field, you might join a commission to gain some knowledge about what that field does. Membership might mean just reading periodic emails or reviewing newsletters, or you might want to serve as a program reviewer or commission directorate member in a leadership capacity. They range in size. Some of the commissions are relatively small, and some are very large with hundreds of members. But many have a very similar leadership structure with a directorate. They often have similar graduate awards, sponsored programs, research opportunities, etc. Before commissions become commissions, they serve a period of time as a task force. We currently have 2 task forces which will become commissions at some point in the future, and that is the Task Force for Alumni Relations and Development, as well as the Task Force for Campus Safety and Emergency Preparedness. And there is a list of information about the commissions as well and the task forces on the ACPA website, and great detail which will provide you information on how you can go about joining one of those commissions as a member. I'm now going to turn it back to Diane, who's going to talk a little bit about our state and international divisions.
Thank you, Heather. State and international divisions is my home for ACPA. When I first became involved in North Carolina as the president-elect, that's how I became involved in ACPA. And state and international divisions does represent where we do our work. So many of these divisions have small memberships, some have larger memberships, but it really does provide opportunities for members to get involved locally and even regionally. Most of these divisions do offer several opportunities at different levels. So professional development, which offers conferences or drive-in workshops, webinars, and job postings. Many of the state members do have the opportunity to get involved in conference planning, present workshops, review workshops, host webinars, and also many of them use their own listservs to show what opportunities are available at different universities. Career networking is also important. Many of these people will get involved with Facebook or blog spots, but also do resume reviews. Because of the closeness of some of these states, people can also just pick up the phone and call to someone and say, I am working with a student that needs assistance with this. So it really does allow that networking to take place. Publications, just like ACPA has several publications, many states have their own publications. Some are even doing journals, research opportunities, and newsletters. I know one of the ways I became involved in the state was first doing the newsletter for North Carolina, and it was a great way to get involved and know who the board members were and the members there. Leadership opportunities, again, a variety of opportunities to get involved as a leader. Most of the state divisions and international divisions do offer president roles, vice president, secretary, treasurer, those types of things, but also looking at sponsoring volunteer opportunities within their organization and planning conferences. I know with NCCPA, I was the conference chair for 2 years, which I did before I became president. And then, of course, the ACPA pipeline. Many of these state and national organizations do have assistance from ACPA and do get involved in the summer leadership program and then move on into ACPA leadership opportunities as well. Currently, we do have 23 state and international divisions, as you can see listed here. And if you are interested in finding out how you can get involved with that association, all the state and international presidents are listed on the ACPA website with their email address. So it's a very easy way for you to find out if your state or your country has a division and how you can also get involved. And the website is also there to help you look at how you might be able to create your own bylaws, looking at goals and strategies for your first year and how you can get your division started. And right now, our current coordinator of state divisions is Matthew Antonio Bosch, and he would be very happy to talk to you about how to submit your bylaws and goals and how to be introduced to ACPA Governing Board for approval. And that is it with state divisions, and I will turn it over to Dave.
Thank you, Diane. And so we've spent a lot of time in the webinar talking about kind of the structure of ACPA and all it has to offer. And so we want to talk a little bit with you about how to get involved in ACPA. There are many entry points for this in order to get into ACPA, regardless of your professional level. And so whether you are a student, a new professional, mid-level, an SSAO, or a faculty member, we have entry points for you. It doesn't matter which type of institution you're a part of. If you're a public institution or you're a part of a private institution, if you're in a community college, a four-year institution, a predominantly white or an HBCU institution, whether you are an urban campus or one out in the middle of nowhere, we've got something for you. Whether you're a member who has just paid membership dues for the very first time, or you've been paying dues for a very long time and just kind of saying, I'm a member, but haven't gotten involved yet, we want to make sure that you know that you can get involved with us. We will talk in a few minutes about the many levels of involvement and talk to you about how you can interface with that. But what we do want to let you know right away is that one type of involvement is not better than another type. Some involvements may be more intensive, some may be more visible, but all of the work done by each of our members is important to the association and our field. If we move to the next slide, which has already been done, here's how to do it. And so the first thing is really to take into account some considerations. We believe that your goals, your personal and your professional goals, really are going to drive your involvement. And so as you look at those, the stage of your career, where do you stand in your career? The time, energy, funding, commitment, and fit for those volunteer opportunities. And some considerations there are, does your institution support you in your professional and personal goals? Can you personally invest your time and money into your involvement in the ACPA? You also want to think about timing. If you have children and at what stage they're at, have you been transitioning jobs, or are there a lot of changes in the work that you do? The cyclical nature of our work and the time that you can put into during different times of year. I want you to think about what you're hoping the association involvement will provide to you both personally and professionally, thinking about your long-term goals, your planning and positioning, and where you might be in the next 5 or 10 years, and how all that might play into the type or level of involvement you want to commit to. As we think about other things that you want to think about, thinking about the opportunities that are available regionally. Obviously, with some budget constraints and whatnot, it may be difficult to travel nationally for committee meetings and whatnot. And so really looking at what's available near you. One great way to get involved is to know someone in ACPA and really talk to them about how they got involved and some of the opportunities they're aware of, and see if something strikes your passion. One major way, and one that I believe is most visible, is convention. I think it's what a lot of people think about when they think of ACPA as the national convention each year. And so what I want to do is pass the mic off to Melissa, who will talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Dave. And convention, like Dave said, really is probably one of the ways that ACPA is best known, and really where people, when they think about ACPA or going to ACPA, as it were, they often think about convention. And convention, for anyone who doesn't know, typically happens around March or April. It is an annual event. It draws thousands of members to it, and it's a great time. I love convention, so I'm a little bit biased. It's certainly not the only way to be involved, but it's a great way to get your feet wet with the association. But because it draws thousands upon thousands of people, sometimes that can be a little bit intimidating. And so there's some things that you can do before you get to convention to actually facilitate your involvement either at convention or, again, to start to introduce yourself to some of the entity groups that we've talked about. So I really encourage you to peruse the convention schedule online to see what's out there, to see what might spark your interest, just to kind of earmark a few things. There are also, last year I know, and I anticipate we probably will again, do some internet-related things just to get people ready, to get them oriented before they come to convention. So there'll be some resources that are out there for you in that way as well. In line with that electronic event, there is Guidebook, which is an app. Will help you organize yourself at convention, but download it before, because the convention book goes up before then, so you can really start to map out what your schedule looks like before you even arrive at convention. Once you arrive at convention, one of the biggest things that I encourage everyone to do, whether it's your first convention or it's your 15th convention, is to volunteer. Volunteering is an excellent way to make this large event a little bit smaller for you. You get to usually interact with a smaller group of folks who are volunteering at the same thing that you are. It's excellent networking. I have friends in the association that I met through volunteering my first or second convention, and we are still very good friends. And so I just encourage everybody to spend a little bit of time volunteering at convention. You will not be sorry that you did. There's convention orientation, usually a couple of sessions, and you'll find them in your guidebook that will orient you if you're brand new to convention, or if it's your first or second, you just want a little bit of an orientation about what to expect. How's this convention different from last year's convention? So attend one of the orientation sessions. There is Convention Colleagues, which is a program that pairs new attendees with some seasoned attendees. That's a great way to, again, create some more personal relationships at convention. That happens right in the beginning of convention, and it's just a great way to get yourself oriented there and to have a couple of touch points. If you're coming there by yourself, or if you're coming there with a small group, I absolutely encourage you to get engaged with Convention Colleagues. There are also open meetings. We've talked about the commissions, the standing committees, and the state and international divisions. Most of these units have open meetings. So if you're interested, you just want to learn a little bit more about any one of those entity groups, go to an open meeting. Attend a social. Lots of these groups have socials, and lots of schools have socials as well. And so that's, again, a great way to get connected. There's Career Central. So if you're volunteering in Career Central or just kind of want to be down there, if you're an employer or if you're a candidate, take advantage of the resources that are there to get connected with folks. Career Central is one of those places where you'll see a lot of familiar faces. After day 2, you'll know a lot of the folks who are down there. So it's a great way, again, to make a large event a little bit smaller. And this year you can find out more about the entity groups and really all the things that ACPA has to offer and ways that you can get connected with the association through Celebrate ACPA. That's happening after opening session, and you'll have an opportunity to, again, connect a little bit more with some commissions or standing committees, or just find out some information about them and find out where other entry points in the convention shell schedule that might interest you. I will tell you that I have said over and over again, ACPA is my professional home, and it's so much so my professional home that if I really had to choose between going on vacation or going to convention, I would choose convention. So it's really a great way to get connected, but it's not the only way to get connected or get involved, and so I'm going to pass it back to Dave to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Melissa. And I don't know if anyone noticed, but that was a picture of me holding a stop sign in the middle of Las Vegas. And so one way to get involved is certainly volunteering. As we mentioned, National Convention is probably the most visible entry point for ACPA members, but it is not the only way to get involved. And certainly with budget constraints, both personally and institutionally, we want to make sure our members know that they don't need to necessarily attend convention to get connected and get involved in ACPA. We've talked some about our commissions and standing committees and state and international divisions. You've seen some personal stories mixed throughout the webinar that shares some of our members' interactions with those entry points. I mentioned early on that my first exposure to ACPA was through Career Central, but there's also a number of professional development opportunities available. Whether it's at the state level or the national level, there are driving conferences, there's many webinars throughout the year, and there are some institutes that are geared towards all levels of our profession. And so, for our students who are really considering whether or not student affairs is for them, there's the Next Gen conference, which is held during convention. There's the Mid-Level Managers Institute. There's the Aspiring Senior Student Affairs Officer Institute. And so there are a number of ways to get involved. But we want to remind you that it is an individualized experience. All new professionals will not and should not enter ACPA in the same way. And in turn, our SSAOs and our faculty will have different goals and can interface in different ways. Moving on to the next slide, there are several levels of involvement, and the first one is a consumer, which is a way for you to really get exposure as to what ACPA offers. This webinar might not be enough for you, and so to be able to sit with the information that's coming at you and spend some time on our listservs, just kind of feeling out what we have to offer, perusing our website, reading the publications that ACPA produces on a monthly or quarterly basis is important. Whether you're just taking the time to use Career Central to fill positions at your university, or find a new position for yourself, and then we are pretty connected on the web, and so usually using and kind of watching our social media and interacting in that way is what we would consider a consumer way of involvement. The next one is contributor, and so this is really what the four of us are doing right now is providing a little bit of knowledge, skills, and expertise to hopefully impart some information to you and give you the opportunity to learn more about ACPA. And so there's a lot of different ways of doing that. You can be a program presenter or a reviewer. You can contribute to our listservs or to our journals. Serve on a committee or a functional area or on a task force, and really just contributing in your own special way to the betterment of the association in our field. The next level, next two levels really is about the leadership, and so really seeing two levels of that, really starting at either the state level or committee level of leading a group of individuals, a group of contributors to either complete a project, an initiative, or really run one of the our larger directorates, the commissions, the standing committees. And then finally, the executive leadership, or it's affectionately known as the masochist level by those who are usually in those positions, but really looking at the large positions, usually the most visible positions in our association, and certainly those are available to any who have the time and commitment and passion to serve in those roles. And so again, you can see that there's many different ways to interface, and there is more on our website and on our slide here. So again, looking at whether you are passionate about research or you are a practitioner at heart, really, there's something for everyone. I do want to highlight two areas here. The first is the Next Gen Conference, which I did mention just a minute ago. But if you're passionate about the future of our association, Next Gen is a great way to get involved. And obviously, if you have students that are interested at your institution, letting them know about the Next Gen Conference and the opportunities there to learn more about what we do, why we do it, and where they may fit into the field of student affairs and college student personnel. And then the other one is ACPA Grow, which is a fairly new mentoring program that really starts from a social media standpoint, but it's really an opportunity for us to bring mentors and proteges together in order to really create dialogue around the experiences of our professionals and our students, regardless of what level they're at. And so regardless of whether you're new or you've been in the field for a while, you can serve as either a mentor or a protege to just further your own knowledge and your own experience, or to be able to impart that knowledge and experience to someone else. And so that program there really enhances the dialogue across our field. And at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Heather, who will close us out.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave. Really just hope that this webcast has inspired you to spend a little bit more time on the ACPA website, investigating ways that you might become more involved in this association. We need people who are willing to share their strengths, but your contributions to the association will be redoubled in what you'll gain from that involvement, as Kathleen mentioned at the beginning. For me, at least, regardless of what personal transitions have gone on in my life, ACPA has always been a constant in my career as I've moved across the country, and I've been really grateful for those professional connections. And part of what has benefited me is knowing what skills and information and knowledge I'd like to be able to gain through my involvement. And so if you'd like to talk with us more about how you can get involved, on your screen is an email address where you are more than welcome to send us an email and tell us about what you're interested in, and we'll try to find an opportunity that matches both your strengths as well as what skills you'd like to grow And again, want to thank all of our presenters on today's webcast. We greatly appreciate your involvement today and contribution to ACPA. And also thank you to the folks in the International Office for running the tech support. And with that, we'll close it out. Thank you.